Hey guys, let's now try to understand as we had nested ifs, if you remember in my earlier video, you can go ahead and check in our playlist. Same way as we had conditional statements of decision making, we have conditional statements of loops and iteration as well. So you have nested loops as well. So in Python, when you write one or more loops within a loop statement, that is known as nested loops. Yeah. The main loop is considered as outer loop or and loops. Inside the outer loop are known as inner loops. Yes. So in Python, anything which is within a loop within a loop is called a nested loop. So you need to also remember that Python programming languages allows to use one loop inside another loop. Yeah. So this is a very good thing when you're trying to solve some complicated problems. Yeah. So there are two types of nested loop as such. Uh, you can use nested for loop. Yeah. So the for loop having one or more inner for loops is a nested for loop. So what you will say for nested for loop is nested for loop. This is for loop having one or more inner for loops. That is called nested for loop. Now, the syntax for nested for loops is, let's see the syntax. Okay. So what the syntax says is we have this for loop with a variable. Yeah, we have for loop iterating variable in sequence. For and inside this for loop, there is another for loop with its statement. This statement belongs to this for loop. Yeah. And this particular statement belongs to the inner for loop. So these are inner statement, these are outer statements, outer for loop statement. And these are inner for loop statement. Yes. Because the indentation is that way. If you see for this for, this is the indentation and this is the indentation. For this particular is the indentation. Around 6, 7 spaces. Yeah. So you need to be very careful about the indentation when you are doing this kind of nested ifs or nested for loops. Let's try to understand one example of for loop, how it works. Yeah. So we have seen the syntax. Let's try to find out what we can do is let's try to find multiplication tables from 1 to 10. Yeah. So how we can do that is let's write a code. So I'll say I'm doing multiplication of tables from 1 to 10. Yes. So let me write the for loop. So for I in range 1 to 11. Yes. If you remember the for loop range condition that we had, the last or the stop is always stop minus 1. So 11 minus 1 would be 10. And the start is 1. Yeah, since we have specified it. Yes. Then I'll have another for loop inside this loop saying that j in range again 1 to 10 since we have to multiply it 10 times. Yeah. So what is happening, as you know how table works. Yeah. So the table usually works in this way. So it will have 1 which is multiplied by 1. This is I. This is I. And this is j. Yes. So I'm taking the first multiplication where the I is 1. It is getting into this loop. Yes. And it is checking is equal to 1. Yeah. Then we have the same I, but the j is getting incremented. So it would be 2. So that is equal to 2. So let me write the code first. We'll understand it this way. So for this j statement, I'll say k equals to I into j. That is my multiplication table. Now I'll print the table saying that telling I, comma, multiplication, comma, j, comma, equals to, comma, k. Yes. So what it does is taking 1, multiplying it by j, and it is printing k. Yes. And I'll put an end so that it's yes, and I'll say print every time it comes out of the loop. Yes, so it gives me an end of line. Let's see what the result is. We can see the first table is 1 into 1 is 1. 1 into 2 is 2. Yes. 1 into 3 is 3. 1 into 4 is 4. 1 into 5 is 5. So you can find here my I equals to 1 every time it has got into the loop of I where the first number is 1. Yeah. So here till it becomes 10, yeah, this for loop turns into 10. It keeps on repeating 1 into 2. So j becomes 2 here since it gets incremented for the next time automatically. I remains 1 for this loop. It runs till it is 10. Then it moves out of the loop and check whether I have fulfilled the stop condition. It is not. It gets into the second table where I becomes 2. And again, j starts from 1. Yeah. So I is 2, j is 1. So 2 ones are 2. Again, I is 2, j is 2. So it keeps on reiterating this entire loop unless and until it runs into the table where 10, I equals to 10 and j is also equals to 10. Yeah, and lastly it prints 100. So this is how you can use multiple loops or nested loops to get this kind of complex calculations. Yes. Same way as we have for nested loops, we also have while nested loops. Yes. How it happens is, let me put a text box here. Yeah. Nested while loop. Yeah. This is again a while loop having one or more inner while loops or nested while loops. Yes. So while loop having one or more inner while loops is nested while loop. Yeah. Now the syntax for it is while you have expression, yes, and then you have inner while statements and the outer while statements. So this will be the inner while statements and this is the outer while statements. Yes. Let's try to run an example where you want to uh, loop from 2 to 100 and find the prime numbers. Yeah. Find prime numbers from 2 to 100. Yeah. So how do we go about doing this? Let me write a formula where we'll use nested while loop. So I'll initialize I equals to 2. Yeah. Get into while loop saying I less than 100. Yes. So I is starting from 2 and it is supposed to be less than 100. Yeah. So I need to find all the prime numbers which are from 2 to 100. Now I go into the next while loop. I'll check. I'll say j equals to 2. Yeah. So while j less than equals to I divided by j. Let me put this in brackets. Yes. And I'll say if not I mod of j, then I'll say break. Yes. Or I will increment j equals to j plus 1. Or I can write it this way as well. As you know earlier, j plus equals to 1. Yes. Now, if j greater than I divided by j, yes, then I'll say print I, yeah, comma is prime number. Yes, I'll explain you the code, don't worry. I equals to I plus 1. Yeah, and I'll say print all prime numbers printed from 2 to 300. Yes, I'll take the code above. Let me run you through the code first. It will first check, assign a value to a variable, which is I. It gets into the while loop and check whether I is less than 100. Yes. And we are incrementing I every time we get into the loop. So every time I finish this loop, it will increment I by 1. It will check 2 less than 100. Again, it will execute it. Now let's get inside the loop. Now j, I have taken another variable, j equals to 2. Yeah. What it does is it check if I divide I by j, whether it is less than or equals to j. Yeah. If it is less than equals to j, yes, it will get inside this loop and it will check whether it is divisible by 2 or not. So 2, yeah, it is divisible by itself. You know what are prime numbers, right? Prime numbers are not supposed to be divisible by itself or by any other number. Yes, it could be divisible by itself, but we do not consider it. So that's why we are checking whether it is not divisible by its own. Yeah, or it will break. Yeah, or it will increment j plus 1 and it will keep on increment unless it will come out of the loop and it will say j greater than I divided by j, then it will print as I is a prime number. Yeah, let's run this code and check whether we are correct in our formulas. No, I have done some mistake. Print I missing parenthesis. Am I missing any parenthesis? You have a parenthesis for this. Print. Oh, sorry. We need to put this in parenthesis. So here it is. So 2 is a prime number. It is divisible by itself and not by anyone. 3 is again a prime number. 11 is a prime number. It is divisible by itself, not by anyone. So every time it is checking whether it is divisible by itself or not. Yeah. And whether it is divisible by 2 or any other number. Yeah. So it is checking whether it is divisible by any other number in the inner loop. So this loops check whether it is divisible by any other number. If it is not, then it will break. It will come into this statement, check whether it is greater than j, yeah, and print I is a prime number. So this is how you can use nested loops or nested while or for loop to uh, nested while or for loops to do some complex calculation as we have seen here. Yeah. Now, one point to note that you need to have is this note. Yeah. That you can put any type of loop inside an other loop. So I can have a for loop inside a while loop, or I can have a for while loop inside a for loop. So you can use it anyhow you want. Yeah, it is not necessary since I have used while loop inside a while loop. You can use a while loop inside a for loop. You can do that. Yeah, so this is a nested loop. Unless and until you're using loops inside a loop, it's called a nested loop. Yeah, no, and there is no compulsion that you should be using while under a for loop or for loop under a while loop. Yeah, hope this makes sense for your people and you'll use it for your understanding or doing any complex calculations. Thank you so much.